What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors along with Sean Hammond. And so, Sean, welcome back to Chicago. Hope the flight was okay this morning. And even if it wasn't, I bet it was less painful than what you and anyone who's probably in the chat today sat through yesterday.
Well, the flights home are never painful for me because I'm going home. That's great. But man, there were some people in their Bears gear bright and early at 5 a.m. this morning, and
Oh, they
they
still
they
wore
weren't
their Bears gear to the airport?
still wearing it. They weren't in the best of moods, I'll tell you that.
I can't imagine them. I can't imagine they are. I mean, we got a lot. I don't even really know where to start with this, right? Like,
What do you say after that? What do you say after that game?
there's not honestly a lot of on-field analysis to give to that outside of everyone sucks apparently. I like was there anyone yesterday, Sean, that you felt like you left that game and you felt like particularly good about? Because I didn't.
No, not at all. I mean, sure, if you want to feel good about Jack Sanborn's garbage time interception, great.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean,
Blaine Gabbert out there giving the ball away, but man,
no, I mean, I wouldn't say for anybody that there were no positives to take from that game. I mean, it was they just got run out of the building from the start. The defense looked like they weren't even there. I know Patrick Mahomes made like one really incredible throw on that third down, but other than that, like he didn't have to do a whole lot. He didn't have to make those crazy throws that you're used to him seeing because it was just easy for them to run right through that Bears defense on with pretty basic stuff. And on the other side, absolutely zero flow for this Bears offense. Can't get first downs.
it's so jarring to watch the two offenses in the same game, right? Because like we knew it after last week, like how messed up the Bears. Like it not only can they not move the ball, it doesn't even look right when they try to. Like it's as if they have like a laggy connection or something. You know what I mean? It just seems so slow, and you're missing frames. And then you look at Patrick Mahomes on the other side, and he's dropping dimes on the fly to whoever. It doesn't really matter who he's throwing the ball to. You got Travis Kelce out there running around, just improvising and sitting down, and what 7 for 69 and a touchdown for Travis Kelce yesterday, and like it felt like he barely had to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy what that guy can do because like that was just sort of a ho hum game for him. But if Cole Kmet had a game like that, that's what all anybody would be talking about on Monday morning. And yeah, like the Chiefs I was talking with Darnell Mooney about this. I wrote about it in one of my stories last night, but you know, it's like that's what it looks like when you're playing good football. And obviously it doesn't like take a genius to figure that out. They won the Super Bowl last year, but the flow that they play with on offense, like you just get the feeling when they're picking up first downs, it's like you just know that the defense is not going to stop those guys.
No, it was the defense yesterday. I guess I shouldn't single out just the defense. Everything was bad yesterday, right? Before we go any further, let me get the propers out of the way. If you thank you everyone who's joining us this afternoon for Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. We do this twice a week, usually on Mondays, as long as the Bears play on Sundays, and that a lot of times depends on whenever Sean travel schedule allows coming back from games. The Bears are home. We try and stick to morning. And then on Fridays, we're usually with you at 9:30 a.m. to preview that weekend's coming game. You can find all of our work at shawlocal.com. We got a lot up there right now. Jake Bartleson, who's producing behind the scenes for us today. Jake has his usual 3 and up. Jake couldn't even come up with 3 things that worked yesterday. He had messaged me early in the second half, and I can't remember what exactly I told Jake to write there. But it was if I remember correctly, it was essentially like, we'll try this again next week on the 3 things that work.
Yeah, there's I don't envy him that task of trying to find 3 things that worked because nothing worked.
Yeah, no, it was an absolutely miserable game for the Bears. Excuse me. But we do still have plenty of coverage for you. Outside of Jake, do you have Sean 5 big takeaways up? Michael Dwojak is over at Hallis Hall today with Matt Eberflus is scheduled to meet the media at 2:30. We'll have Bear Down Nerd Up from Sean tomorrow during the off day. And then Mark Silverman will be around on Wednesday. You know, Mark Sylvie's going to have plenty of thoughts after that 0-3 start, Sean.
Oh yeah, he's gonna have his comments. I thought he wrote a really nice column for us last week, just looking at the dysfunction that we kind of saw off the field with all that madness going on.
I felt bad actually because Sylvie usually files on Wednesdays during the season, and anyone who who is a Bears fan and paid attention last week knows that last Wednesday went completely off the rails in terms of everything happening with Allen Williams, Justin Fields comments. They even had I almost said Nick Foles getting released for Nathan Peterman being released for 24 hours. It was just a weird day, but yeah, Sylvie wrote a great column. But it's funny, he wrote before the season started that before the season started that he felt good about the direction of the Bears with Kevin Warren coming aboard, with Ryan Poles seemingly like essentially they were no longer the White Sox is what Sylvie wrote. And I can't believe that 3 weeks in here, he was already alluding to it last week that he felt like, oh, I maybe shouldn't have written that column. I cannot believe the complete dumpster fire that this franchise is. I mean, the state of where things are right now, we are back to 2014 Mark Trestman level bad.
Yeah, I mean, and it's happened so quickly and
incredibly fast.
I mean, even just like I was saying a few minutes ago, like talking with some people in the airport, like Bears fans are in a rough place right now. Yeah, I don't think anybody expected it to be this bad. I mean, this is Kyle. This is like worst case scenario as far as how you thought the first 3 games would play out. You know, just looking at the start of the season here, it could not have gone much worse than this.
Yeah, Rick Gonzalez checking in with us this morning says Matt Eberflus 3-17 as a head coach, and Trestman was 13-19. Let that sink in. I would not trust Flus or Poles to run a bath, let alone trust them to turn this around anytime soon. Rick, I completely understand and why you feel like I don't know how they get this on back on the rails, even to a respectable level. Like at this point, you have to assume, Sean, like this is a team. If they win 4 games, you're feeling pretty good about it. Yeah, I mean, you're not feeling good about it, but like at this point, you're feeling good about it. Is what I'm trying to say. We know how incredibly hesitant this franchise is to make in-season changes, right?
Yeah.
And it's 3 weeks. It's not happening yet. But not only did you not see improvement from the first 2 weeks, they got significantly worse somehow. I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, like I don't know what that was. That was look, they have a lot of issues on the offensive line right now. You know, I know there's guys out injured. You can't minimize that. Like that's a huge part of why they look so dysfunctional. And yeah, you want to be playing with Braxton Jones and Tevin Jenkins and a healthy and up to speed Nate Davis, but that's just not where they are right now. And on top of that, though, like the connection with the receivers just doesn't really seem there. It seems like, there's still times where you look at the film and you're like, is somebody running the wrong route here? Because it's like there's guys really bunched up in certain positions, and it just doesn't look like a well organized and meticulous offense.
They took a penalty coming off, a change of possession yesterday. You had that, and I'm trying to remember, is that the same play where Jatari Carter clearly, like they were trying to communicate a protection change, and it was really loud. Is that the play I'm thinking of?
I can't remember exactly if that's the same play or not.
Or was that a separate scenario? I can't remember how many delay of games there were yesterday, or not. Delay of game penalties. But that was like that to me was a perfect encapsulation of where they are. Like you're coming out, like I know you got to change protections, right? Like you're not just gonna snap the ball, but like how are you not prepared? Like even like how are you not prepared for the crowd noise?
They didn't look prepared. They didn't look all that interested in being there. And this should have been a team that's playing with nothing to lose. Like you're 0-2, you're going to face the defending champs, you're a 13-point underdog or whatever the line was. Like, why not just say, screw it, let's just pull out all the stops here and try to, make it interesting. Like I can't believe that team that we watched yesterday, there was just no fight. It's like we're 3 games in, and it looked like they'd given up.
That's not great when you that's your hits principle. Chi-Town the reaction chiming in this morning says at the bare minimum, I expected a 5-12 season with some of our new additions starting to shine and some improvement from Fields. Yeah, Sean, let's start with the Fields stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is far from he's
It's
far from
not
the only person.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not
And I,
all on him.
and I don't even know because things are so bad how to properly critique him at this point. I
I
also
don't
don't
know how
know.
you can just looking at the film from yesterday's game solely, I'm with you, Kyle. It's like I almost just want to throw the whole thing out and forget it ever happened. It's like everything was just so disjointed. It's hard to read into what exactly there were so many symptoms for why this team looked terrible yesterday.
Yeah, like you and I think both of us expected there to be more what we saw in 2022 from the offense too. Like we expected,
Mhm.
all right, the way they talked during the week that they had kind of learned their lesson and they were still going to lose this game, but we were going to see an offense that put the ball in Justin Fields' hand and let him make decisions. And it didn't happen. I don't even know what that was yet. I don't know what the game plan was yesterday.
I don't either. And like it didn't seem like they were really I mean, Kyle, last week you were talking about, why aren't they running the ball? And then it seemed that at weird times yesterday, they were just handing the ball off to the running back. And I'm like, you're down 20 points. Like you're down 28 points. You're down 31 points. Like, what are we doing? Like what
Well, I mean,
you're
it did
past
get to it got to the point pretty quickly. I was like, just work on your offense. But that even then it didn't matter.
sure.
Like they couldn't even move the ball when they were trying to work on their offense.
Yeah, I don't know,
Exactly.
man. It was that was a rough afternoon. I mean,
And then
go ahead.
you got let's you got at some point yesterday. I remember the first maybe couple series. I'm like, hey, Tari Carter is actually holding his own out there a little bit. Like he's not getting absolutely pantsed. And then he got bull rushed,
Mhm.
and like it was it was about as bad as you'll ever see an
Oh yeah, I know the play you're talking about. Yeah.
NFL guard get pushed back. And after that, it was like it completely cratered his enthusiasm or his not desire. What am I looking for? Like it just felt like he was like, I am way overmatched. They just showed it. I need to get the hell out of here as quick as possible.
Yeah, just trying to hide out there, be a chameleon, not I look,
What do you say, right? Like,
I don't know what to say. I'll say this. I know people, at least people in my Twitter mentions were excited about Jatari in the preseason. And I'll just say that, having been at every practice during training camp, like there were some mixed results. Like I'm not super surprised that that's sort of where this is at. And yeah, you ideally, I know Nate Davis had a rough week 1, but you got to get him up to speed and get him back to what he was in Tennessee if
were
this
you su-
offensive line is going to work.
were you surprised to see him not start yesterday?
Yes and no. I would say initially, yes. Like I was. You think about it. I think part of it is the fact that he looked so bad in week 1 and he was clearly not ready. And then he missed another day of practice this week, and he was only a partial participant on Friday. I guess it's not that big of a surprise. I would expect a full week of practice this week, and hopefully he's good to go against the Broncos.
Oh, the Denver
But
Broncos.
at least, that's the one. If there's one saving grace, at least he didn't look as bad as Denver.
I'd argue you did.
Well, Vegas would too.
I would say, yeah, Vegas is. I mean, yeah. If anyone who hasn't seen that yet, the opening line for the Bears, and the Bears are hosting the
At
Denver
home.
Broncos at home. The Bears are a 2.5-point dog. Is what it opened at last evening on most sites. That that's embarrassing. I mean, there's just no way about it. Like opening it up as a 2.5-point home underdog against a Denver Broncos team
That gave up
that
70.
that gave up
yesterday.
70 and has not looked particularly good in any facet of the game either. Holy shit. I mean, like, I Mike B, frequent guest on the show, good close friend of mine, right? We're texting yesterday. He's livid, understandably so.
Yeah.
And I kind of alluded to it early in the show. Like, I'll be completely honest with you. At this point, after what we just witnessed yesterday, Sean, I don't see this getting back to respectability at any point this season. At least anytime soon.
I mean, it's hard to pick this team to win a football game right now, even against
Right.
a terrible Denver Broncos team. And yeah, there's winnable games on the schedule, but if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on this team in any one of those games. I do think that you know getting healthy on the offensive line will help some, but I mean, it's only going to help so much. You're right. I mean, at this
And that's
point, you
and
know,
it's
go ahead.
so this is what Mike was. Mike was essentially saying like this is the lost season. Like just
It's
flush it,
feeling like that already. Yeah.
fire everyone, start over, try and salvage Justin Fields is what he was trying to say. And I know and I want to take the conversation there because I know some Bears fans are feeling that way, but there's also like the segment that's like still holding on to hope, or he's very much holding on to hope for Justin Fields.
Hmm.
My thing is, I understand why he feels that way. Like I was incredibly high coming about Justin Fields coming into the season, but after seeing this for 3 weeks and knowing that he's going to be under these guys' tutelage, at least let's say it continues down this and they're 2-10 before they make changes.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, you're now 3 years into the Justin Field thing. Like it's you have to start worrying as long as he's under the control of this regime. Like he's gonna become or like just broken. Like you can't fix it until he's out of town. You know what I mean? Like he
It's going to
needs a
be one
change.
of those situations where, the only thing that will fix it is a new situation, a new city, a new team.
Because I mean, listen, that is not. It's great content for us. Rick, I'll get to your question here in just a second. I do want to get to that. But sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Jake, not your fault. I just was trying to do too many things at once. Um, Sean, help me out here. I mean, no, so yeah, the field stuff. I mean, like, there's very little chance, I feel like, at this point of getting it back on track. These two guys, or the coaching staff led by Matt Eberflus, and what
Hmm.
we've now seen here with general manager Ryan Poles, like, I don't know how you salvage this and how you salvage Justin Fields with the way this thing looks.
I don't know how you do that either. And I mean, yeah, even if this thing craters out and Ryan Poles fires the coaching staff and they, you know, start thinking about a quarterback in the draft next year.
Remember when George McCaskey was interviewing coaching candidates before he hired Ryan Poles?
Yes. And I've had several folks on Twitter mention, when that happened with Pace, and I'm like, guys, it happened again just like 2
It's
years ago.
it's the same story for at
Yeah.
least ever since the end of Lovie Smith. And you could probably I'd have to go back and look. They may have just gotten completely lucky with Lovie Smith. Because let's look at, I mean, come on. At least in my lifetime, I'm 36 years old now. They're very. How long did Wanstead last? 5 years? 6 years?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
recall
I mean,
exactly.
we're talking about my childhood Wani out there at this point. I mean, it's been constant turnover. Doesn't matter who's been in charge, whether it's Ted Phillips, George McCaskey. It's you had the I it was funny. So a little behind the scenes talk here. Like there are obviously ways we track like how many people are on our website and
Mhm.
looking at different stories at different times. At about 9 o'clock last night, Sean, the number one thing people were reading on our website was not from yesterday's game. It was a story you did essentially with background info on the 5-person panel the Bears formed to hire Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, I noticed that. People are People are thinking about that, huh?
Yeah, and understandably so.
And wondering
And they're how did they do it again? And
where did we go wrong here? Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to look back to see how we got to this point. And I mean, yeah, like your GM should be. You shouldn't start your. I mean, maybe you can have an
no, you
initial
should.
phone call, but honestly, you shouldn't start your head coaching search until you got your GM hired.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think it was Mark Potash over from the Sun Time Potsy had a 98% sure had a great little piece or tweet about the fact that after
Mhm.
the Chiefs and the Bears fired their coach at the same time. Lovey Smith goes,
The
I'm pretty
same
sure.
day.
Yeah. It took 4 days for the Chiefs to hire Andy Reid. It took the Bears another 16 days to hire Mark Trestman.
And
I thought it
do
was
you
a
see where the two organizations have
yeah,
how their
and it
paths
it
have gone quite differently?
it hasn't changed a single bit since. I mean, you look at the Trestman stuff, and like they're trying to shoehorn Jay Cutler in, and then they make that change, and Ryan Poles comes in, and he inherits Jay Cutler, and he inherits a coach that he didn't really want in John Fox, and then he fires John Fox, and you hires, you get Mitch Trubisky, and then that goes bad after 1 year. They're all gone, and they do it again. Things go off the rails with Trubisky, and then you allow the prior regime once again to draft the quarterback before you fire him a year in. It's just like at some point, at some point, like what's it? It's not you, it's me, right? But like, or
What's the
it's not
football
you.
equivalent?
Yeah, like look in the damn mirror, Chicago Bears, and like the McCaskey family. Take your money that you earn out of it, run the business side, and get the hell out of the football side. Just stop it because it's an embarrassment at this point.
Look, the one thing you can maybe hang your hat on here is that Kevin Warren is in the building, and you can hope that things are going to be different under this guy. He's run a successful organization before. Uh,
Eh,
I mean, well,
comparatively,
look, he got them a stadium built, and let's not kid ourselves. That's why he's here.
yeah,
That's job number one, and so
yeah,
you could call that a success. Now, I know they haven't won a Super Bowl, but um, you can at least have a little bit of hope that he's a guy running this team who will make better decisions in that regard, at least better decisions than George McCaskey has made. And I mean, you shouldn't have a you shouldn't have your 5-person panel with two people nobody had ever heard of, and they're googling the day you announce it. Your decision maker's got to be Kevin Warren next time this goes down.
absolutely agree. Now I'm gonna pull up that from Rick here. So, any chance Flus and Poles are fired after this year? Poles' best draft pick has been a punter in 2 years. Um, I'm
I
gonna
Go ahead.
unless there is a miracle turnaround, and after what we just witnessed yesterday, like I said, I expected them to lose pretty handily yesterday. I expected them to lose that game. If you had told me they gave up 41 points to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, particularly with what we knew that they were missing in the secondary, I wouldn't have been surprised. But I would have also expected that you told me that they put up about 30 points.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's why I expected them to come out and play free. Like they just needed to. Like they just needed to say, Justin, here you go. And it was not only was it the same thing, it was a worse version of the same thing that we saw over the first 2 weeks.
yeah. It was an outmatched version.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Kyle, do you think? I think we're both on board that the more they keep losing, Eberflus is definitely fighting for his job.
Yes.
Where do you put Ryan Poles in that conversation?
I say Ryan Poles' seat is firmly hot at this point. I think both of here's the thing. I don't know what to make of if we were saying, I don't know what to make of Kevin Warren and what authority he's going to be given.
Hmm.
Like there's no way, there's no reason this coaching staff, if things continue in this way, should be here on November 1st. There's just no reason for it. I mean, you can't be the guy that's rah hustle intensity and then show up and do what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
It can't happen. And if Kevin Warren, is in charge, I would expect that to be a pretty quick change. Ryan Poles, Rick earlier said that his best draft pick in 2 years has been a punter. Like, I got to think back here over I guess my big thing is like even the guys that I like can't stay on the damn field, right? Like you look at the guys in the secondary, like Jaquan Brisker. How many times a game is Jaquan Brisker leaving the field?
Yeah. I mean, he did wind up playing, he came back yesterday and was out there. I would argue that Jaquan is probably his best draft pick.
Yeah, that's what. But I'm starting to get a little concerned there even.
But yeah, I mean, he's certainly in and out, and the way he plays, the way Tyreek Stevenson, it's only been 3 games, but the way he plays,
Tyreek Stevenson, kid,
I'm not
calm
surprised.
down.
Totally unnecessary. You're putting I know you got to play like the guys come in play in certain ways. They want these physical defensive backs. That's why they drafted Brisker and Stevenson. But you can't be putting yourself in at risk of injury like that.
You can't put yourself at risk. You can't put other it's like he heard the hits principle and he was like, I'm 100%. I'm gonna prove that I am their guy.
Hit the crap out of people.
It's like Tyreek, just chill, man. Like just wrap up. Mike B says, I love the Kevin Warren hire too, but until he actually does something either with the football or with the stadium, then he hasn't done anything at all as far as I'm concerned. It's a fair point.
I mean, yeah. I can't really argue with that. No. The only thing he's done so far is apparently talk to everyone in the organization. So
yeah, he's gone around and asked them what for him. He's apparently gone around and asked everyone what they need to do their job better, which Ryan Poles may want to tell him that he needs better football players, or someone needs to say they need better football players. Oh, Sean. There are 14 more games, man.
Yeah, there's 14 more games. I think Kevin Warren's number one job this week is to drop $100K on lawn equipment because they got to get Soldier Field up into shape.
Wait, what?
Did you see that story? The stuff that was stolen from Soldier Field.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's priority number one this week.
I wonder who owns that.
I was wondering that too because
I would assume it's got to be it's a park district.
Because it was stolen from a park district facility, but I don't know who actually maintains the physical grass. Is it the Bears groundskeepers or is it somebody from the park district? I don't know that for certain.
I don't know who is in charge. I would assume that the city, the park district, is in charge of all upkeep of the facility, but I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be a situation where Guaranteed Rate Field is technically not owned by the White Sox, but Roger Bossert is out there, making sure his baby.
I think it might be something like that because they also, they made a big stink about the type of grass when Eberflus got hired, and they have the same grass at Hallis Hall. I would think it's the same folks who are taking care of it at both places.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean I'm just making a joke, but yeah, it's.
Chi-Town says, I feel like Warren might be our only saving grace, hoping he's really got an emergency game plan.
I mean, you would hope so. I mean, certainly the worse this thing goes, Kyle, I to not to move back a little bit, but to jump into the Ryan Poles conversation, like I was asking you, like I'm kind of in that same boat where I think they're going to let him hire the next head coach. I mean, for those reasons that we just talked about, where he essentially came in and got hired, and they had a small list of candidates they already liked for head coach. I know he still picked Matt Eberflus.
If they come out with. If that's the storyline that starts getting fed, right? He's gonna pick his own coach. He was hamstrung. He came in with a quarterback. It's like we've seen this before.
But why should we think they're gonna do anything otherwise?
Right. Well, I mean that as I think it was Chi Town was saying, like the only thing is this, your only saving grace is if Kevin Warren is given autonomy to do what he wants. And
Yeah.
that's what I was saying that last week on the show, right? When it comes to like they're trying to get public financing and get a deal done. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say public financing. They don't want us to say it's public finance. Though they have, but you know what I mean. There's terms they like to use to make sure that the tax people are happier, not angry with them for taking public funds. But like that is a very real battle, not just in Illinois, in any state where you're trying to get
Mhm.
money for a new stadium. It's a lot easier to do it when you're a winner, and
Yes.
it's just a bit more difficult when you are. I mean, they are the laughing stock. I mean, I guess the only reason they're not the laughing stock of the NFL this week is because the Denver Broncos existed yesterday. Otherwise, we'd all be making fun of the Bears for a third straight week.
I don't know. Honestly, though, I know the Broncos got beat bad, but you look at what that Miami offense can do, and you're a little bit of you's not surprised that they're scoring points in bunches. And then, I get back from the game last night, and Scott Van Pelt on ESPN, and he's talking about all the crap that went down last week off the field, and it's like they are the laughing stock of the NFL right now. Unfortunately, like that's where it is. I mean, they put up their last in point differential, their last in yard differential between them and their opponents. It's about as bad as it can be.
I'm going to throw this up here from Muck and Meyer. It says, "So things are so bad. We're talking about the grass." Absolutely, man. Anything to talk about besides this terrible Bears team.
Hey, the
Uh,
weather's going to be great on Sunday for
ooh, it
Broncos
is.
Bears. So there's that.
Oh, dude. So we've had a family in town, my wife and I, for about the last 3 weeks from Poland, and it's been raining just like nonstop. And then I looked at the weather. They leave Wednesday morning. I looked at the weather
Oh,
forecast. I looked at the weather forecast and starting like
that's
on
unfortunate.
Wednesday until all the way through like next Monday, perfectly sunny and like 80 degrees, man.
It's the weekend looks beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm glad this is going to be a great weekend to be in Chicago. I'm glad they're home.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this time of year in the city, man. Uh, the Mike B says they are the laughing stock of the league, especially considering they were the worst team last year and are legitimately a lot worse now. That's really hard to do. You're not right. You're not wrong, man. And Mike, and not only are they significantly worse than where they were at the end of last year, think about all the money they spent. Um,
Hmm.
by the way, so I I don't know about you, man. I'm really concerned about TJ Edwards.
In
Like
terms of like this
like
thing
in,
working out,
in terms of his play. It's like it's 3 games in, but it's not like he doesn't know the system.
right?
Yeah, he had a big year and a contract year. I'm starting to get a little bit worried based on what I've seen so far.
Well, look, we talked about it last week with Jalen Carter. Like, you know, a lot of guys look really good in that Eagles defense. And
Yeah.
and I'm not super concerned about TJ Edwards. I'll say that. I have to, maybe dive into the film a little bit more on him exactly, but
I think that I'm pretty. I'll say this: I'm very confident that if you dive into the film, Sean, you're gonna want to take a shower after. It's not good, man. It's particularly he was really bad yesterday. I mean, it's just there have been way too many times so far with missed tackles, and even more worrisome, running backs crossing his face coming out of the backfield. Like you've got to be able to turn and get downfield against those guys in this defense. And he hasn't done it. I mean, he's just getting beat by anyone he's matched up against.
yeah, it's certainly concerning for a guy that you went out and spent, you know, what, $19 million over 3 years.
Yeah.
This is going to be supposed to be a guy who's a staple of your defense.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, like when he's either making a mistake or you're just not noticing him out there.
Yeah.
And that's
Uh,
not what you want out of your big free agent signings. And I know Tremaine Edmonds is the guy with the big contract. Um, But yeah, Kyle, like to go back to the comment, and I think it ties into polls too. Like all the money spent on this team in the offseason, obviously the trades and the draft picks they made. It's nobody expected them to look worse than they did last year, and I think one other reason why I feel like Ryan Poles is going to stick around is because you know he had to. George McCaskey had to have known what his plan was in terms of this is going to get ugly before it gets better. I can't imagine that he would have hired a GM who tore it down like Ryan Poles did without Poles sort of describing that plan of action. Now, I mean, you can make the argument that it's gotten a lot worse
Yeah, I
than
don't think
anybody thought.
I I don't think his plan was that in early in year two, the supposed franchise quarterback would look like he doesn't belong on an
Yeah,
NFL roster.
no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
But I think it could be an excuse to keep him around.
Mike Mike B hat was we're on this text chain, and he brings up a good point. We don't know what Ryan Poles' contract is either. We
No,
don't know
we
Matt
don't.
Eberflus's contract. Like, are they gonna, if let's say it's a 5-year deal? We don't know. I can't say that enough, everyone. Like, we do not know what the contract is for the Bears general manager and head coach because the Bears will not tell us, which is just insane. But let's say it's a 5-year deal. Like, does anyone expect the Bears to have pay Ryan Poles for the next 3 years? Like, as much as I believe, based on where this is going, he deserves to be fired. I also don't think they'd pay a guy 3 years just to go away.
I don't think just you know having followed this team for all these years, I have a hard time seeing them part with a GM after 2 years, especially when last year was basically a wash.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
it happened one other time, but I mean, it was a historically bad season.
yeah,
I mean,
and I
we are
guess yeah, I mean that's still on the table. A historically bad season is absolutely still on the table.
Rick. Rick said the Bears are worth billions of dollars. They can afford it.
It's
Man,
true.
there's a reason billionaires are billionaires. It's because they don't pay out when they don't have to. Man, that's you got to remember that. Like, that to me is the biggest obstacle. Like, if they finish 3-14, like, Ryan Poles should be fired. But if he's got another 3 years on the contract, I think that's going to play a major factor in it, Sean.
Yeah, and it goes back to that all that weirdness when they were asked about Nagy and Pace, whether what their contracts were, and then remember Kyle, like the years were on. I forget if it was Pace's bio or Nagy's or whatever, and then they disappeared off the website, and the whole thing is weird. I don't know why they're like this.
Yeah, Mike said they corrected me. They parted ways with Phil Emery after 3 years. You're right, Mike. It felt like 5 though.
It felt like five.
I all right, we got to get out of here in a couple of minutes, guys. But before we wrap up, I don't know. Usually I have some way to wrap up the show, Sean, and ask you what you think about something, but I really don't. It's just we're just kind of here at this point.
We're kind of here. We're already starting to think and look at the draft. Are we, Kyle? I mean,
I mean, there are calls. Like, people are
yeah.
talking about the Bears. Like, hey, here, like, I'll throw this up here. Blake says,
I hate to
Blake
say
Thompson,
that on September 25th. It's just so bleak.
I know. Welcome to welcome to the Bears life, John. Blake Thompson. The only positive thing I can think of is possibly having 2 top 10 picks, possibly top 5 picks. I understand why you say that, man, but who's Blake? Who's making those picks, right? That's what. Here's a question: like, if let's say Matt Eberflus was fired, Ryan Poles comes back, right? We've seen this show before. What gives any fan confidence at this point? Like, I know just naturally people are going to get excited. Oh yeah, number 1 pick. They're going to draft their franchise
Mhm.
quarterback. They're going to get it right this time. Why would anyone believe that though? Like, they could draft Caleb Williams at this point, and I feel like they'd find a way for this thing to just completely implode anyway.
That's why it's So sad. Just remember the excitement when the Bears landed Justin Fields, Kyle. I mean,
Yeah,
that draft night was one of the most exciting nights, I think, for a lot of Bears fans in recent memory. And to see where it is now, what is his record? 5-25 or something like that
I want
as
to
a
say 5 and
starter.
26.
I mean, it's just part of me just feels bad for Bears fans. I mean, it did not go this none of this has gone the way anybody expected it, and certainly these first 3 games this season, there was so much excitement week 1, and the vibe at Soldier Field was so good that first game against the Packers, and I
Chi
don't know,
Town, yeah.
man. I don't know.
Chi Town says the players are clearly going to pick up on how poorly this team is run. It won't be long before everyone wants out, even the DJ Moores. Yeah, Sean, you'll be in the locker room at Hallis Hall on Wednesday. Um, it's early still. You've seen bad teams. You know how it starts to go, how people start to talk. I'm sure you'll be telling us soon enough when that does talk. But yeah, I expect this is a last week was a big week. Like at least last week, you could say you can look at it and be like, listen, there was a lot of distractions. They were going to lose that game anyway
They were going against the Super Bowl champs,
on the
Patrick Mahomes.
road. Yeah, like they're down on the offensive line. They're down starters in the secondary. Like you can find ways to rationalize it and be like, well, maybe we should have seen that coming, right? You got to
Yeah,
win. I
but
mean, you got to win this football game.
this is and I would extend that even beyond this week, Kyle. I mean, this is a pivotal stretch right here. In terms of, not in terms of winning record playoffs, all that stuff's out the window, but just in terms of like getting this thing back on track. You got the Broncos, you got the Commanders, you got the Vikings, these next 3 games. You gotta win a couple of those. I mean, you gotta be in these games and ideally win a couple of those, because if not, I mean, this thing is if it's not off the rails already, it's gonna be.
Probably coming soon, but we're going to find out this coming weekend against the Denver Broncos. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here for now. We'll be back with you guys at 9:30 on Friday morning. We'll preview that Bears Broncos game. Guessing there's going to be a ton of news between now and then. Hopefully
Yeah.
a little less than last week, though, Sean. But for now, like I said, we're going to sign off. For Sean Hammond, I am Kyle Nabors. Make sure you just stick to shawlocal.com. If you are watching this on YouTube later, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave a thumbs up, give us a thumbs up, and leave a comment. It helps other people find the show. I am Kyle Nabors for Sean Hammond. We'll talk to you guys on Friday.